got a neat little job here. Let me get my camera right. This is actually a pen gun. Original box. American Derringer Corp. They didn't actually make it. Another company actually made these for American Danger. American Danger. American Derringer. And in annotations, I'll try and remember to... Hold on. Never fails. But I'll try and remember in the annotations to put that information in there. But I was told that a spring fell out whenever the gentleman was trying to cock this, but let you see here. It's a pretty neat little unit. This is your safety, and the way that this thing works, you can see right here, see that? This thing works by you extend it. Let me see if make sure that I'm getting this. Extend it, and then you turn it and let it come back down, and there's your trigger. This is the barrel and chamber, single shot. This is a 25 ACP. I have seen threaded barrel versions of these where you can run a suppressor on them. So, but that's it. And then your safety is right here. That's your safety. My dog is crazy. Here we go. We're gonna take apart the stainless steel pen gun. I've already removed this right here. I'll clip in how that was done. We're going to go ahead, remove the chamber and barrel, set it aside. Next thing you're going to do is undo the flathead screw at the end. You've got a spring in there that this holds, but it's not real powerful. Just hold your fingers over there, and these fingers will help keep that screwdriver lined up, since it is a flathead and they're prone to walking out of the slot. There you go. Remove your spring, and your screw goes into your retainer. We'll set that aside. Now, there's your trigger, pops out. This can be set aside. All right. Now, see how this thing is set in there. Knock this pin out. Push it out. It's not really in there very tightly. And grab my hammer. Oh well, I'll just use this little piece of plastic. That's the end of my little punch. There's a pin. Now, you got 3 pieces that's getting ready to come loose here. Actually 4. See right there? Got that piece right there where it's hooking on to this part of the firing pin. Get that out of the way. And this little piece is going to fall, it will fall down. Or it can fall down. There. That goes in there basically like that. It hooks on there. Now this will slide. Actually, I'll move my safety a little bit here. Move it over just where I can get my, twist it where I can get my fingernail in there. And this just slides straight out. You notice, see the notch? That notch right there? That notch is designed, it will slide up underneath this lip of your safety. Alright. Now, sorry, I got it zoomed in. I'm trying to keep it all on camera. There's a screw right there, flathead screw, to get that safety apart. And this is a tricky one. I don't have out here like an eyeglass or an eyeglass screwdriver set or a small enough screwdriver for this out here. So I'm just going to be very careful and use the end. It's not tight. If this one was tight, I'd end up having to have the proper screwdriver. So please forgive me for not having the right screwdriver. I'm just going to be very careful here. It's very thin and very narrow. There we go. Very, very small screw. See, that's my smallest gunsmith screwdriver, and it just does not fit. This is just a little cheap old screwdriver. I don't even know where it came from. Just one of those ones that you end up with. And yeah, this is stainless steel. I'm not being as careful as as I have to be with some other ones. But that is a very tiny screw. We'll put that off to the side. And there's the hole that goes into. And this collar, which is your safety selector switch, can just slide right off of there. Now, let me explain something here. You see that hole right there? That hole is supposed to have a spring and detent inside of it. So whenever you guys, if you remove this, just remember that there is a spring and detent underneath there. This one is missing on this one, and that's why it's in here. That spring is going to be on, actually it'll be the top side of it. Because as this thing, as it loads in, let me zoom out here. This is the direction that it all will turn and bend whenever you're going to fire it. And so where you see the top of your firing pin mechanism there, that is the top of the gun. And directly in line with that is where that detent is going to come out at. And so on this one it actually has a V right there. But anyways, point is, that'll shoot you in the eye or you'll lose it. So just be very careful when you pull it apart. And that is a spring there. It goes into your breech face, and the breech face actually slides back and forth in there, which is part of the safety mechanism. Now to remove your breech block down in there, what you've got to do, this is very important or you'll damage your firing pin. The firing pin has to be retracted this way in order to get this out. Remember, this is the top of the gun, and so what we're going to do, I'm going to take my block here and I'm just going to put this down into this hole to hold it. Now, once that's done, what you've got to do is down in here, you've got to get something to go past the breech block on the side there. What you're doing is there's basically a piston there that's all part of the firing pin unit, and that has to be depressed in order to get this firing pin behind and underneath that hole. Once that's done, you can push from the top side down, the side with the hole in it, down, and this will come out that side. You push down, and that will push through. Now, what I recommend is when you pull it out of there, the reason that I was able just to pull it out, I left my pin in there. By leaving my pin in there, it holds that. It's going to allow me to get my firing pin breech face out of there. Now, run that down in there. Got something brass to hold it. That way, as I bring it up past the internal threads, the brass is less likely to hurt it than, you know, a piece of steel. Press down, and I'm going to remove the pin. Put my hand over it and let it up. There's not a whole lot of tension, but you got to be careful. Zoom in here. You can see what we're dealing with here. Push that through. And all I'm doing here is just removing it from my holder there. All right. There we go. You can see right there, that is all part of the same unit there. Got my firing pin. Entire unit. There's your firing pin, and there's your spring for the firing pin. So, we'll put that aside, and I'm gonna, whenever I'm done here, I'll do a full parts layout, a full part spread for us. Now we've got our trigger and our mainspring assembly that we've got to get out of there. Alright, here we go. Our trigger assembly. Again, I'm going to utilize my block here. I have to punch this pin out of the that holds the trigger in. Sometimes you have to try from multiple sides in order to get them started. Now I want to show this actually has divots. It has been crimped to keep that from coming out. So I'm going to have to set this down and get a little bit more mojo on it to knock it through one of these. I'm going to pick my divot with the least. Let's see here, that'll be it. That's the one that is the least pronounced of a divot. There we go. That one's coming on through there. Starting to get that pin out right there. All right. I lost the pin. It popped on out. Small pin. Put that over there. Now you see I've got my punch all the way through. It's holding everything in. Now, that pin is responsible for holding that spring in there. So I'm just going to pull it. I'm contained here within this, and I've got a padded bottom here. So I'm going to make sure the trigger's contained there. There we go. Now, I'm trying to keep this all together so you all can see. Alright, that goes in like that. We'll go in like that. That trigger is in that way. And this is actually your sear system and everything. Your trigger and sear and all that stuff is the way that it's designed. You have your spring there. And there's that part. I want to make this real clear just because I actually had just a little bit of confusion, just wasn't sure exactly which way this spring plunger came out of there in relation to the trigger and how it hooks in. But here's how it does. See this notch right here? This notch goes to the back or the top of the gun. And this is where the trigger comes out. Let's see here, I'm sorry. This is where the trigger comes out, okay? This is the back, the part that would actually be in the palm of your hand. And the way that this works is your trigger goes into that hole. That's the pin that holds it on there. It goes in like that. And this goes in relation like that. This part right down here where the notch is, and this part of your trigger is basically the sear. I guess this would be considered your sear. Right there is the lockup point. Whenever the trigger is pulled, it goes past there and allows that to come up to fire the gun. Oh, wrong direction. There we go. And here are all the parts lined out. You got barrel, chamber, all in one. Safety. Here's the little bitty screw that goes into the slot there as far as for your safety. Your firing pin assembly. This, I don't know what you call a mainspring or what. This is the heaviest duty spring. It goes within there. This is your breech face. And this actually will slide up and down along with the safety. And down inside of here, the way that this safety mechanism works is, you see that lug on the bottom of the firing pin? Whenever this thing is on safe, see the firing pin protrudes right there? That it's in the fire mode. Whenever you rotate that safety down there, it actually slides this breech block down, and that lug around the base of the firing pin contacts that part of the breech block and won't let the firing pin actually protrude any farther. That is part of the safety. And then the other part of the safety is that this unit here actually inhibits the rest of the mechanism from moving. That's another part of what it does. This is all part of that same deal, the safety and everything. Here's your trigger pin. This is your main pin. This is the connector cam that connects your vertical access motion to the longitudinal. You've got basically your sear right here. It has a small spring that pushes at the base of it. This is your main, I'm just going to call it plunger, and it has a larger spring around it. Down here is your base plate and screw that attaches this all together, your outer receiver, and your clip. And that is the Model 2 stainless steel pen pistol, and it is from American Derringer Corp. There's another company that actually produced these for American Derringer Corp. I will, in the annotations, I'll put down, I'll put that on there. The box is pretty interesting. Warning: engage safety before loading or carrying. Read instructions before using. Warning: do not place your hand or fingers over the muzzle of barrel when loading, unloading, or shooting. And this, I think, was an American Derringer sticker, and this is Derringer's website and phone number. And it actually has the serial number of the gun written on the box there by hand. So anyways, that's the Derringer Pen Gun, and I think next you're going to end up seeing the reassembly. The reason this is in is because the spring and the detent plunger are missing from the breech face, and I don't have either one of them to replace it. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a universal spring. This is actually a 3-2 is what the Wolf spring designation is on this spring, and I'm using a piece of drill rod, and this drill rod, I believe, was either a number 54 or number 53. I don't remember which one it was, but either way, what I'm doing here is, I know that this drill rod, it just fits in there and will still move up and down. And so what I'm going to do is cut this spring to where it's short enough, and cut this piece of drill rod to where it's short enough that I can compress this down in there as I put the rest of it back on, and it will work and serve as a detent. After I've cut this, I'm going to round the upper end of it so it will operate smoothly on the inside. Now, I don't know if this thing had a detent ball. I don't know if it had a detent plunger. I don't know if it was just a spring on there. I can't tell. I can't find any information about it. But looking through my balls, I have some detent balls, but they're too big. My balls are too big. So I'm going to have to go without balls to maybe a rod, or maybe no balls or rod at all. Oh, it killed me. First time I trim this, it's just gonna be a shot in the dark. It may or may not be long enough, it may be too long, I don't know. But I'll take it over and hit it on the grinder. And if you got to hold something like this, you can use a scribe or whatever to put it in. Let me get it to focus for you. And then I can grind it with it on the end of this scribe. Just hold my finger on it and dress it up. All I'm going to do is just right where I trimmed it, right there where I trimmed it, I'm going to just clean that up a little. Alright, I'm back from trimming that up. That was a little bit of a unfun operation, trying not to get my fingers in there. Now we'll push that down in there with our drill rod. We have a little bit of play. Alright, I'll test that out. And I'm going to go back there. What I'm going to do is I'll just show you how I'm going to drill this, or how I'm going to cut it. Alright, now what I'm going to do is to cut this down. I'm going to do it on the edge here of my grinding wheel by spinning this as I do it, and that way it's going to make a little bit of a point at the place that I am actually cutting it, and then I'll break the rest of it off. What that's going to do is it's going to give me something to, or at least it'll start to give me something to center the spring in. That's the idea here. I'm going to put it on the edge and hit it with this hammer. And now, here's what I have. And let's see if we can zoom in on the plunger that I made. There we go. Very, very, very tiny. Tapered on one end to fit down within the spring, and then on the other end the edges are beveled so it won't gouge into the metal that it's sliding against for the detent function. Spring is already down in there. Put it in the cone side down. Small little booger right there. Booger. I think it's going to work, but I need to make sure that it's deburred a little bit better. I'm not happy with that grinding noise that it just made. See if I zoom out just a hair, if that'll clean up the focus for you. It is working, but I'm going to pull that spring out. And after I get the spring out, I'm going to make sure there's no burrs inside or out. And then we'll put it back together. Yeah, it looks good. Looking good. Focus. There we go. No burrs, polished up, ready to use. Well, here's the parts that we had to make. There's a spring down in there, and then I used drill rod, a piece of drill rod for the detent there, and I lost the piece that I made. And this is actually a piece of tungsten from my TIG welder that happened to be right at the correct length, and it's even harder, and so I just decided to use it instead, so it'll actually work even better. But that's that, and now we're gonna reassemble this. And as always, I'll be using frog lube on all the parts as they go in. It is the best firearms lubrication on the market, in my humble opinion. There are some specialized stuff that may do a little bit better in these conditions or a little bit better in this condition. But all in all, as far as just an all-around useful substance, you cannot beat frog lube. Just can't be beat, in my humble opinion. So, we're going to take our firing pin and our firing pin spring. This is the thickest spring that we have that we're dealing with. Here is that is basically our frame. And it's going to fit in just like that. breech face. Gonna give it a good coat of frog glue. Make sure that it'll go down the way that it should. And let's see here, so we can make sure that we get everything right and lined up properly. Let me make sure that we're lining it all up. This is the top right here. There's our screw that our safety selector keyed on. That's how it went. And so that means that our rounded end of our breech face has to go towards the bottom. And again, how I'm determining that is we've got the hole here that the screw went in for our safety, and that can only go here and here, right? Alright, if you look at the safety, see, whoop, it's slick with that frog glue. See right here, this area, see where that rounded recess is? That rounded recess is designed to accept the rounded end of our breech face. So with that being said, we know that that has to be the way that it's going to go. Now the other way that we can look at this is look at our breech face itself and look at where the recess is on the back, and that is going to accept the recess or the lug at the base of the firing pin. So by figuring that out, it all lines up properly. That's what we're talking about. And the same way that we did with the other ones, we're going to push that firing pin down. Let me get a smaller punch. See if I can use this. Push that firing pin down where it is past the breech face. Get something else here where I get a little more leverage on it. There we go. Well, shoot. Maybe this will work. All right. I'm not getting it down far enough to get past the firing pin. See if I can go in from the other side here. It is being cantankerous. What the problem is this is so thick it's pushing that plate out just a little bit, making it hard to go through. There we go. What I was having to do is just push that firing pin unit past this block by getting something down beside the square, the rectangular part you see there. But now it's in there. So, with that in, I'm going to push this out some. I had my spring in there, so I just want to verify that spring is still in there. And it is. You probably can't see it, but it's there. So, with that being said, know that I've got a detent that'll go in there. And then I've got to get this slid up and over it. It's going to be a little bit of a tricky operation. Because see, I know, you see the recess right in there. Right there, that recess. That is going to go over this end, the rounded end. Now the end with the hole is where that spring's going to go. You got to have the recess lined up down there, so whenever you push this down, it can go in there. So what I'm going to do is push my firing pin down, and once you have the firing pin down, you've got it below the lug, below the breech face, and you can push your breech face down. Now it's in actually in what would be the safety mode. Recess right there. We'll go over the protruding rounded area. I'll be right back. That'll go right on there. Now, what I'm going to do is see if I can't chuck this breech block up in this vise while it is turned sideways. The idea here being that I'll be able to use the hole here, put this in, and I'll be able to get to my detent and everything. This is not going to be a fun operation. Actually, it reminds me of the game Operation. There, got that in. I gotta go get my safety glasses so I don't punch that thing through my eyeball. Now, what we have to do is get that pushed down while we slide this collar up and over it. For this, I'm going to try and use a larger punch so I have a little bit more surface area to work with. There we go. Okay. Now I'm not 100% sure if I have fixed the problem, but we're going to go on as if I have. That's the only way that I'll know, because you need to have part of it together before you can actually actuate the safety and find out. So it's just kind of a hope and pray, and I guess we'll see. I'll continue to use this block for now. I'll use some blue Loctite on this little screw. And I want to be careful not to gob it on, because if I use too much, I could actually seize up the safety itself. And in case you didn't catch the earlier part of this video, I know this is not a proper gunsmith screwdriver. I usually preach to everyone about using proper gunsmithing screwdrivers, but in this instance I don't have one of this size. So I'm having to make do with what I've got. And right now it's coming in the form of angling this screwdriver into position. Alright. Now that's in there. So we'll put the rest of it together. Now, like I said, we're going to do the lower part. And this is the spring that goes inside of there. It's the probably, I guess, the smallest of the springs that we have to work with. And it's just going to fit straight down in there. Then we have this unit here. Just had the UPS man show up and talk for a little while. He's a good gun guy. He's got an SKS that he bought, paratrooper model, that someone cut the bayonet lug off of it. So if anybody's got a bayonet lug that they want to get rid of for an SKS, please give me a holler. He's going to bring it by, and I'm going to see if I can find one for him. So on this unit here, the notch is going to go towards the slot. Just like that. And the trigger will go in like that. I was just going to see if that might work. So, you can take the trigger, the base of it, and put it right in there and push down. Let's get it to focus. Put it right in there and push down. Alright, rather than try and take the pin, that little bitty pin, and use it, what I recommend that you do is compress that spring with the trigger, and then just take your punch and run it through. That way you have everything lined up. Now once you've done that, you can back your punch out, get your pin, and you'll use your pin to knock your punch on through. Just had to kind of tap it. Let's see here. Now I'll switch to brass. And the trigger's through. What I'm going to recommend that we do here is tap that on through a little bit more. See how far recessed that is compared to that? You want to try and get them as even as possible. Alright. Now you're going to need to stake this again. It has to be staked on each side. So what we'll do is go to my old standby. I really love these automatic punches here. They really work well. There we go. It's staked. Steak. Steak. Alrighty. We can go ahead and put the rest of our lower together. Take our spring. I'm going to go ahead and take the brush and brush inside of this area real well with some frog lube. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be. Get the spring some. You're not wanting to coat it. You're just looking for a little bit. Drop your spring in. Plunger down in there. Actually, I have that in there wrong. Sorry guys. Spring goes in the bottom. Plunger goes in right there. See the step right there? It's going to go underneath your safety. Now that is the bottom. Knock this out here so you can see. See the way that cam goes? That notch there fits over that part of your firing pin. And you let it rotate down until you can see through the pinholes there. Trigger goes this way. It can be cantankerous to get this piece in there the right way. You got to get it all pushed down and get a pin through all three pieces. It's easier said than done. I forgot. If you will take the trigger and squeeze it, when you do it, it will pull that spring down and allow you to get everything together. That's the secret, is pulling the trigger. Once you've done that, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to replace the punch with the pin. Ah, my bad. We have to have the cam properly on there. That cam has to be up against this bottom piece. Alright, I just had to, I readjusted my detent and everything in here just a little bit, shortened the detent and lengthened the spring some to make the safety work properly. Now we'll get back to putting this back together. Get this piece here in, and the way that it works, see, it's got that step, that ledge that goes underneath your safety ring. Now that is the bottom. You've got this cam, and this little jaw is going to go around the back of your firing pin, and this ledge here is going to go onto this little safety bar. Now look in there, make sure that everything lines up. And this, you're going to squeeze your trigger in, and with the trigger squeezed in, you should be able to get a pin to go through all that. I didn't have my safety all the way down. Get that out of there here. And what we've got to do, that's got to be pushed all the way forward when you put your cam in, because the cam has got to be against that little part. I'm not going to even put that pin in yet because I'm not sure that it's in there right. What I am going to do, the issue I'm having is getting this bottom little piece here to stay in. I don't believe I've got the cam in there properly, but what I'm going to try and do, is go ahead and put the bottom section together to see if I can load all of this. And in doing that, the idea is that it'll put pressure up and help retain everything. And so that's kind of what the idea is there. Spring will go in the bottom, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Actually, I've got to put the pin in. We can remove this pin after the fact if I need to readjust that cam. So what I'll do, same thing like what you've seen in some other ones. And bear with me here, I'm learning as I go on this thing. I've not been able to find any schematics, any information. I mean, I can't find anything about it. I'm just tapping out the punch, letting it slide through my hand as I go there. There we go. Alright. Now we'll put it on in there. I've lost this piece. Oh no! We'll go ahead and stick this back in. And if this happens to be right, I'll go back and I'll Loctite this screw here. All right, now we'll see if this is right. I don't know that it is. Okay, now my trigger did not come out, it did not cock, so that's what I've got to solve. Something in my trigger mechanism is not working properly, and I've got to solve that problem. Alright. I'll go ahead and undo this again. And I'm gonna work this out, and then when I come back I'll show exactly what I was doing wrong, so you guys can see and learn from my ignorance and my mistakes. It's very important. From about the time that I pulled this apart, I was telling you guys wrong. The little cam that goes in there that connects these two parts, I had it backwards. The rounded part of that cam goes this way. The little notch, I thought that I was talking about, that notch actually contacts the top of the sear and trigger assembly there. So I had that thing backwards, and so that's, I'll put that in annotations and I'll point out in the annotations everywhere that I find an instance that I had it backwards. I'll show that it was backwards. Now the issue that I'm running into is I went back and I looked at some of the video of the disassembly, and this piece here, I can't really find anything other than just, you know, the little notch here. I don't see what's responsible for holding it in. I know that when it's on safe, it's tucked up underneath there, but I looked back and there's nothing that's designed to secure it. It has no groove down there or anything. So I'm going to put it together and just see if miraculously with it all together it stays in there, and just go from there on it. So there we go. We have our cocking mechanism properly installed. We'll go ahead and put our spring in the rear. Of course, we don't have to put the spring in right now. We could do this part first. We will collapse our trigger down. See, that's held in right there. Take the spring, and I'm not going to Loctite this yet because I'm not really confident that I'm not going to have it back apart again. Alright, there's that. It is on safe right now. You can see that it's moved that strike plate down in front of the firing pin. And in order to remove the barrel, it has, if I remember correctly, let's see here. Right now, the strike plate is in the way and it won't let you put the barrel completely on. See the gap there? So, well, that fell right out. If we cock it and take it off of safe, now the barrel will close all the way. It'll go all the way into its home. So there's a few things we'll have to figure out on this. On this piece that I was talking to you about, what I did was I actually just took it and I mushroomed the bottom of it just a little bit on an anvil and hammer, and then I got it to where I actually had to hammer it down into place. That is going to just be temporary. What I'm going to do is I've run out, but I've got some, it's Loctite brand, and it's actually basically Loctite super glue for metal to metal. It's very, very strong. This part does not slide forward and backwards or anything. It just is there. And I believe that initially it was probably wedge shaped and it was pressed in, but now, you know, after time, it's not. It's a wonder it hadn't fallen out already. So once that comes in, I'll go ahead and run some of that on there, and it will be pretty much a permanent bond on there. But after getting the cam properly positioned, now this is in much better shape. The safety does work. Got our spring in there. We'll run our unit down. I'm going to go ahead and put some Loctite, a little bit of red Loctite. Not much. Especially when using the red. You don't need much. There we go. This unit has been coated with frog lube so it won't rust anymore. These things are always a pain to get on. There we go. There's the pen gun. There's the safety, and it does work, and it does have detent now. And we'll test fire this later. Alright, we're going to fire the pen gun. Have gloves on because I don't trust the thing. Got our chamber. Round. Keep it pointed in a safe direction. Alright. It's supposed to be cocked. And it didn't fire. And it didn't fire. It was on safe. Alright. And there is a way that this thing comes back undone. It's supposed to unthread once you have moved your safety plate. There we go. There we go. We'll run another round. And these shooting glasses I've got on, I'm carrying these now. I've got all different styles, and I'll do a demonstration on them. They are pretty much indestructible, and they're 20 to 30 bucks. Alright, now, this time it's already cocked, and I've got the chamber off of it, so I'm going to make sure to keep it pointed in a safe direction while I thread this back on there. Keep my finger off the trigger, just like with any other gun. This gun's a good way to get shot, that's for damn sure. Now it is supposed to be on safe right here, but take it off safe. There we go. That is the pen gun.